Hey everyone, hello and welcome to another VueJS Athens Meetup. I'm Sergio, and along with Emma and soon Fotis, we will be your hosts. We have two special guests with us tonight, Dan from Carreros, Michael from Roller GmbH, AIDS, and say hi to everyone, guys.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
So again, huge thanks for being here with us, guys. I really appreciate that. So, have you ever been here in Athens, Greece? Well, when it comes to Dan, I know that he has been here. So, what about you, Michael? Have you ever been?
Yeah, I've been there last year because my wife is originally from Kos, from the island Kos.
Oh,
So yeah,
Nice.
we
nice, nice.
both know and love Greece. So yeah,
Perfect, perfect. I hope we can meet in person one day,
yeah, why
maybe the
not?
next time.
Would be great.
Perfect, nice. So, we have an announcement for you guys. Vue.js Live, powered by Git Nation, is giving to two lucky viewers a full access conf ticket each. So, let me just share my screen in order to see the official site of Vue.js Live Conf. Perfect. So, as I said, Vue.js Live is powered by Git Nation, is giving to two lucky viewers a full access conference ticket each. So all you have to do is to fill a form that I will send right now to the chat. So be patient with me, guys. Perfect. Nice. So, yeah, all you have to do is to fill the form, and at the end of the event, we will draw two lucky winners. So, with that being said, we will start with the with Dan's talk, the bare minimum accessibility in web. So, Dan, share with us your screen.
Yes, I'm doing it now. This should be it. Are you seeing it? Yes, perfect. Okay, I'm going to start the presentation. Everything all right?
Oh, good. So,
Okay,
share the link and do your job.
thank you. So, I'm here to talk about the bare minimum accessibility in web and the journey on how to fix 96.8 of the websites online. And a little spoiler alert, this talk is not Vue specific. It's going to cover the best practices that can be applied in every framework. So a little bit about me. I'm the person in the picture that's not touristic at all here in Athens. I'm a front-end engineer at the Career OS. We are a platform that tries to empower students to find the perfect job. And I was born in Romania, but I've been living in Barcelona for the last 3 years. Normally, I've worked as a front-end engineer for the last 12 years. And during this time, I've worked on Angular, the first Angular, Angular 2, and then I moved to React, and now I'm working full-time using Vue. And it's safe to say that I like Vue the most. That's why I participate in the Vue community. And I like to write tech articles about Vue or JavaScript topics. And you can follow me on Twitter or Medium at Neciu. So I also have a cat and a Greek friend called Fotis. He put me up to give this talk here at VueJS Athens. So let's dive in. So I'm going to talk about the why and how of accessibility, common accessibility issues, and how we can make the web more accessible. So the why and how of accessibility. So thinking the modern workflow of a web application has gotten really complicated now. So the life cycle of a feature usually goes like this. So the UX does some research or some benchmarks to get some insights on what the product or website is missing, and then gives that research to the product owner, who usually writes a document called a PRD, like a product requirements document, or PID in other companies. And once you have this document, the engineering manager is going to create a Jira story. It will get refined and prioritized, and it will enter a sprint. They will break the story into very small tasks that can get picked up by the dev team, by the QA, and together they're going to release a feature in production. Once in production, the feature will probably be A/B tested to make sure it's performing correctly, and the results are analyzed by a data analyst at the end of the life cycle. So to look at a clear example, let's think about an e-commerce website that is selling shoes. Pretty popular website, and the platform or the company keeps hearing feedback that users go to a product page, the shoes are sell out, and they want to save those shoes for later, maybe when they come back into stock. So they want a favorite feature to favorite, or a wish list. So we know the user's main pain point. We give this to UX research. They create a prototype. They use users to interact with it. They get positive feedback, and then the PO takes that information and writes, like I said, the product requirements document, which is usually 5-6 pages about what user base we are targeting, what design we have chosen, what the impact we think will be, and what analytic events we are adding, and so forth. Afterwards, the engineering manager takes that document, breaks it into a story, breaks it into smaller tasks, they refine it, and it goes into a sprint. We now know that it needs a backend, the logo, we have the design, we have everything we need. And then it goes to be A/B tested in production. So now we have this very small icon on the right. And one thing you might miss in this entire workflow is the word accessibility. And the reality is this: we have a barely visible icon on the right over there. It doesn't have any label, it doesn't have any ARIA role, and the button has no description whatsoever. And if you inspect it using DevTools, you'll see that it's not actually a button, but HTML div. So maybe you are lucky and this is not the case for your company, and the developer might know some best practices about accessibility, or would check Lighthouse for performance issues, and some accessibility issues might pop out. But here they were not so lucky. So why is that? And the reality is that in the life cycle of a feature, the PO usually focus mostly on feature results. So, and the devs focus on delivering and maybe on some web performance because it's trendy right now. It impacts SEO, a little bit of core web vitals, but accessibility is the odd man out and usually left at the end. And what product doesn't realize is that by ignoring accessibility, they are missing on a huge chunk of users. The World Health Organization, in numbers, have estimated that around 1 in 6 people are suffering from a disability. That means 1.6 billion people, billion with a B, can probably be affected by your website's lack of accessibility. So that means there are multiple types of disabilities, like people with motor disability who are using voice recognition software, adaptive keyboards, mouse sticks, and eye tracking software to browse your website. Then we have people with visual disabilities who are using screen readers or Braille software. We have people with auditory disabilities who are using hearing aids or sign language, or are reading transcripts from your videos. And then we have people with cognitive disabilities who are using communication tools. So we need to make sure that all of them, regardless of type of disability, can browse our product as easily and smoothly as possible. And if you think about it, 1 in 6 people, that means 16% of your user base. So think about that number a little bit. When we see an increase of 1% in conversion, this is a huge win for the company. But 16% of the user base can be affected, and we don't even take it into account. So let me talk a little bit about the common accessibility issues that we have. So the WebAIM Million project is, for the past 4 years, this project has run an accessibility test on the top 1 million websites in the world. The Million homepage list combines the top homepages and domains from all sorts of categories, and it already excludes homepages that return errors, 404s, or pages with fewer than 10 HTML elements. And the result is that 96.8, that's almost 100% of homepages, have accessibility issues. And the most depressing thing is this number, 96.8, is actually an improvement. In 2019, when this project started, the actual number was 97.8. So in 4 years, we have managed to decrease the number of websites with errors just by 1%. So we made incredible progress in web technology over the last 4 years. We have web performance with core web vitals that are impacting SEO. And we have frameworks like VueJS that have dominated the front-end landscape, yet we only decrease the accessibility errors by 1%. Hopefully, we're seeing a bigger push into the future. And the good news is that all of these errors can be categorized into 6 groups. So we have low contrast text errors, missing all text, empty links, missing form labels, empty buttons, and missing document language. Besides these big 6, we still have 1 or 2 more errors that I'm going to talk about a little bit in detail. So let's go through each of these problems, see how it can impact our user base, and how we can fix it, and what's the best practice to apply. First, the first principle of accessibility says that every text on your website needs to be perceivable. And we have to make sure that everyone can read the text. That means people who suffer from color blindness or people with low vision. So the WebAIM Million report for 2022 found that nearly 84% of the website have at least one low contrast violation. So let's see an example in practice. Here on the screen, we have 2 colors. And just by looking at them, you can tell that both of them are very, very bright. You can tell this, of course, if you are not visually impaired. If you are, you may probably do not see them at all. So the WebAIM provides a calculator to measure the ratio. So you just input these 2 colors and you get a report like you see on the right. So these 2 colors have a contrast ratio of 1.06 to 1. So just those numbers, it basically means that you can put the same color on top of each other. And that doesn't make for good text reading experience. So let's look at how they look together. And just by seeing them, you can tell that this is not a good experience that you want on your website. And on the left, you can see that it fails every accessibility requirement. So now that we know that this is how it should not be done, obviously, what do we need to make it good? So the World Wide Web Consortium has 2 guidelines for success. Most text needs a ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 against its background. These rules are a little bit laxer if you have large text, so it only needs a ratio of 3 to 1 against its background. And the best thing about this is that we can actually automate this check. Designers and UX researchers can use popular plugins in Figma and Sketch that check color contrasts and catch this from the design point and doesn't have to reach production. Developers can use tools like Lighthouse or Visual Test to measure the contrast ratio of their components and make sure low contrast test does not reach production. So as you can see, it's essential that all users can easily read the content on our website or web application. So everybody loves a good image or meme. It can easily turn a mediocre piece of content into a modern masterpiece, like this one that you see here. So just imagine the amount of time and skill you spend crafting this perfect joke and having 16% of your audience not even knowing it's there. Why? Because screen readers cannot interpret images without alt text. And that leaves visually impaired users with no way to understand the image's content. Alt text is read out loud by most screen readers, and they can understand the context that your overall content or website is giving. And if your website is full of instructional information like infographics, details, and stuff like that, you're putting them at a severe disadvantage. And again, luckily, this is also very easy to automate. And you can have a simple ESLint rule that can catch images with empty alt text. But then the question remains, if you put this ESLint rule, does all images need alt text? And the answer is no. If you have decorative images or images used as background that is just for design purposes and do not bring any new information to the user, then it's recommended to just ignore the alt tag and add a presentational role to your images. Why? So you don't overload screen readers with useless information and bring a simple flow to the impaired user. And speaking about screen readers, the number one problem they encounter are empty links. And when I mean empty links, I usually mean something like this. You have an anchor tag and you forgot either by mistake to place the text inside, or intentionally you put a class or an SVG that is supposed to represent an icon. Right? And for us, if you see an icon, you can tell what it is, but screen readers cannot differentiate between empty text or icons. So the way to do it, you have to add ARIA labels that tell you, hey, this link is going to go to the Facebook page. And you can put the icon itself as ARIA hidden true, so it doesn't impact the screen readers. Better yet, you can add screen reader only text that you can hide from normal for everyone else that are not using screen readers. Integrating Lighthouse in your development pipeline will normally catch empty links like this, but it will ignore navigation done programmatically by the framework. So for example, if you have on-click events that just take you and you use router push or link push, then these will not be caught by screen readers. So if possible, try to use framework-specific elements like live, link, navlink, etc., as they transform the element into native HTML elements. And I want to, for the next step, for the missing form input labels, I want you to imagine going to a popular e-commerce website, like the one we talked about earlier, right? You just want to buy some shoes. You browse the website, you filter, you sort, maybe you go to your wish list if you can, and then you add something to the cart. After that, you might sign up and you want to reach checkout. Once you've reached the checkout and you want to add your delivery address or actually pay for your product, then you're seeing something like this. And this is what your users who are using screen readers are seeing when you don't properly add labels to your inputs and rely on CSS design gimmicks to prompt for the correct information. Can you probably navigate this form? Maybe you can guess that some are date or some are selects and you can click them, but most of them are very not user-friendly. And adding proper labels, like here, we need to add area required, area described by, an actual label that uses the for to correlate between the label and the input. But you can also add like helper information using area described by to tell the screen reader what it needs to add. And this is true for all sorts of inputs, not just text and email. So we need to add labels and descriptions to all input types like checkboxes, radio, text area, etc. And this is actually just the first step. The entire form submission flow should be accessible to all users, interacting with buttons, error handling, and success messages. Too many times I've seen an order created dialog that it's dynamically created inside the framework and doesn't have any ARIA role attached. These are never going to be visible to screen readers. So you have people trying to submit the form over and over again without seeing the success message. So pretty sure these users will probably never order from your website again, or actually going out of their way to cancel their order and give you a very bad review. So now speaking about using buttons. Empty buttons are just like empty links, but way worse. So buttons must have like a programmatic name, so people using assertive technologies can gather information about how to activate the button or what it does. If there's no text describing the functionality, screen reader users will not know what it does and will probably never use it, right? So the most common situation that you can encounter is like you have search buttons that include only icons, or even worse, that they are designed using pseudo elements like before and after. And this button gives no indication to the user there is actually something there. And the solution to this, of course, is to always add ARIA label or ARIA labeled by attributes. And just like links, if you have VON click event handlers, make sure to also add enter pressed or on space pressed events, because normally screen readers, when encountering a button, can interact with it using enter and space buttons. And a critical mistake you can make is to give the button role to a div with an event handler, right? As screen readers are using enter and space, it's critical to add these to the div. Otherwise, the browser does not know what to do with it, and your event handler will never be used. And speaking of interacting with buttons, keyboard accessibility is essential for people who are not using a computer mouse. Many blind and visually impaired people also use keyboard interactions in order to use their screen reader. So we always need to have focus values to our buttons and elements so screen readers know which element is in focus now. You can see in the image the clear difference between when you have focus and when you don't. In the second part, the afternoon button is in focus, but you cannot tell any difference. And a visible focus also helps people with executive dysfunctions and other vision or processing related issues like light sensitivity, headaches, ADHD, migraines, because it draws attention to one thing at a time. This helps reduce the cognitive load. So as best practices, do not use outline 0 or outline none or other styles that remove or limit the visibility of keyboard focus. Avoid overriding the default browser behavior, and design accessible hover and focus state using the color contrast ratio that we saw first. And of course, use semantic HTML for buttons. And if you have already solved the focus and hover state, we absolutely have to make sure that our entire app can be used without a mouse. That means to not hijack the scroll behavior. And it's very important to keep the order of the navigation, the order of the HTML elements of the page, because they need to follow the flow of the page. So try not to use too much like the CSS flex functionality that you can just reverse them and keep the normal flow of the page, like having the header first, then the navigation, then the main, and finally the footer. And digging deeper, keep a normal context flow. So page elements that are not interactive to mouse or touch users should not be made keyboard focusable. So do not abuse the tab index role, because making non-interactive element keyboard navigable will cause confusion. And if you have a long list of links, so if your menu is like 10 items long, and it's okay when you're using a mouse to just like click it and it will expand or not, but you need to provide a skip to the main content on the page so screen readers can go to the content they desire to see. And the most important part is to actually test your application using a keyboard. A really good idea is to invest in some end-to-end tests that only use the keyboard to interact with your application. I don't mean to go a little overboard with this. Doesn't mean to, for each feature you build, it has to be testable by the keyboard, but you can just research the most common flow into your application. So for example, from the product page to a successfully placed order, you want, this is the most critical part of your application, and you want to make sure that it can be done using a keyboard. So you can use a library called Cypress Real Events, and using it, you can simulate the entire flow by clicking or pressing tab or pressing space or pressing enter, using the keys and so forth. And if you want to correctly navigate the content of your application, we have to make sure we don't have any heading issues. So use headings to give structures. So we want to keep the correct hierarchy of the heading. So you have to use H1 as the main heading, the most important content on the page. And then we have to group our H2, H3, again, H2, H3, and so forth. So headings should be made in the correct order because they announce the start of a new topic in our content. And it's very easy for screen readers to navigate. Try to not skip headings and to use semantical HTML again. Do not just style your divs as bigger text. Use actual H1, H2, H3 if that is the case. So missing document language. Language declaration is an HTML attribute that you put at the beginning of the HTML tag. And it denotes the default language of the content on a page or post. So language declaration is usually already set by the framework by default or by bootstrapping an application. And it's usually set in English. So if you want to have your website in another language like Greek, it's always important that you change it. Or even better, if you have multiple languages and you're using internationalization, you have to make sure that this tag changes dynamically when you change the language. Because in addition to helping people with disabilities, like they have Braille keyboards that can read aloud the content and put the correct accent if it's in the correct language, it can also help translate people who do not know the actual language of your website. So all through the talk, I've been talking about ARIA attributes and how to add them, and usually they are like the solution to all our problems. But believe it or not, no ARIA is actually better than bad ARIA attributes. And the reason for this is the WebAIM Million report found that homepages with ARIA present have 70% more errors than those without. And one reason for this is the browser is pretty smart to inherit or guess the actual ARIA attributes. And if you override them with empty strings or bad content, you are basically breaking the HTML native features. So with these ARIA attributes, with great power, also comes great responsibility. So using them, you can create fully accessible components, like the first example, but you can also override normal HTML behavior by adding a log roll to our table. Our screen readers will not perceive this as a table, and they will not get to reach that data. So before creating components, please check this amazing website called Patterns that has like all these components already made with best practices. You can find links, list box, menu buttons, switchers, dialogues, and tabs, tables. Everything is made fully accessible. So you can see here how to make a correct component. So making the web accessible. Thinking back before about the life cycle of a feature, now that we know the best practices and how to use them, it's not all about the dev work, what the developer needs to do, but we have to integrate accessibility into all parts of the life cycle of a feature. So we know in the UX research, we want to involve people with disabilities in our user testing practices. We want our PMs and POs to add accessibility success criteria inside their documents that they're creating for their stakeholders. We need to put accessibility score in the definition of done for all of our stories. And we need to add test using Lighthouse CI, using visual tests, and writing keyboard only end-to-end tests to make sure that our website and app is accessibility friendly. And I know we are all busy and have a lot to do, but try to make it a practice to at least try once the product you are building with using only a keyboard or a screen reader, or try some amazing Chrome extension that simulate what impaired users are seeing when they are using your application. So I'm going to leave you with a fun fact. So if a website is funded by the European Union, it needs to be accessible by law. And I truly believe that if we want to live in an inclusive society, we need to make sure that every website needs to be accessible, not just those founded by the European Union. So here are some tools that I'm going to share them on Twitter after this talk is over, and also the slides, of course. And you can check all of these tools out that can help you with your accessibility to verify guidelines, the plugins for Figma and Sketch, the headings map Chrome extension that will tell you if your headings are in the correct order. Wave evaluation will give you an accessibility evaluation. You have Lighthouse CI to integrate in your CI/CD pipeline that can check the accessibility score of your pull request. Of course, the Chrome developer tools is amazing. It has an accessibility tab that shows you each element, what ARIA labels is using. And then we have some Chrome extension that can simulate dyslexia, color blindness, or all sorts of disabilities, so you can see what is happening in your app. So my name is Neciu. Follow me on Twitter for the slides and questions that you may have. Super proud to be here. I'm super excited. Efharisto. Thank you.
Whoa, that was amazing. Really inspiring. Your talk, whoops. Okay, and so your talk was real motivating and inspiring. I really enjoyed it. We have some questions from Fotis.
Wow.
Who is asking? He's asking, who is responsible to make a website accessible? Is it a product or a development decision? So it's a stakeholder question.
Yes. So I believe, obviously, we have to work together, but it's the developer who should drive the discussion because we have more knowledge than other people, and we can see and show where are people impacted.
Perfect. And do you have any advice when adding accessibility lately to a product?
Well, normally I would start by adding ESLint rules to make sure you're not making the matters worse, the first thing. And then just auditing your most important features and going down from there to add accessibility slowly and surely.
Nice. So, Stefanos is asking how to introduce accessibility to a team in order to start adding it gradually in a project.
Yeah, so like I said, ESLints to make sure you're not making the project worse, but then you can easily start integrating CI pipeline tools like Lighthouse that can check the score of the application and the score of your feature that your team is working on.
Nice. Perfect. And also, here's a question. Is VueJS and Flask getting better together in the meantime?
Vue is certainly getting better.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for your talk and for answering the questions. So it was a pleasure to have you here. And thank you again for accepting to be here.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Perfect. So now we are moving to the next talk. We have Michael Hoffmann, who's gonna talk about building a polite pop-up with Nuxt 3. So, Michael, share with us your screen.
Sure.
Perfect. And we are removing ourselves. So, do you think?
Thank you. So I want to talk about how I built a polite pop-up with Nuxt 3. About me, my name is Michael Hoffmann. I'm a freelancer from Munich, Germany, and I'm focused on VueJS. I run a weekly Vue newsletter, and I'm also very active on Twitter, so make sure to follow me there. But now let's get started. First, let me explain what is an impolite pop-up. So let's take a look at an example. Here on the right side, we can see a typical website nowadays. We go to the website and we see some kind of banner on the top. If we remove the banner, we can see, okay, we have to agree to some privacy and cookie policy. And after that, we are asked to sign up to a Vue newsletter. And that's what is called an impolite pop-up. And why is it the case? Because the first problem is we have another annoying full page pop-up on the landing page. As we saw, we already had the cookie banner and whatever banners, and we have another annoying banner or pop-up here. The second problem is the user haven't even engaged with the related content. So you can see here this page is contains information about React and Vue, but we didn't even visit the Vue page and are already asked to subscribe to the Vue newsletter. And the third problem is the visitors are asked every time they visit the page again. So if I reload the page, we can see it happens over and over again. So this is very impolite. Let's take a look at how we can make it better by using a polite pop-up. So let's take a look at the same application, but now with the polite pop-up. We can see on the landing page, we are not asked for signing up to the newsletter. If I click to the React route, we can see here is some React content, and we are also not asked to subscribe to the newsletter. If I go to the Vue page, we can see here a debug menu, which shows how many seconds we are on the page. And if I start scrolling, it tracks the scroll progress. And if we reach a certain threshold, we get this polite pop-up, which does not appear as full screen pop-up, but appears in a non-intrusive way. So, and this has the advantage, the user already visited a page with Vue-related content. So the newsletter is targeted to Vue developers, so it makes sense that we only ask on the relevant pages. We are also tracking that the visitor is really interacting with the page by checking how many seconds he has spent on the page. And also we track the scroll progress to see if he is really interested in the content. So it's coding time. Let's take a look at how we can implement such a polite pop-up. Let's start by writing a Vue composable. So a Vue composable is basically just a function that we export in some file. And inside this composable, we need a reactive variable. And this reactive variable contains the information if the pop-up is visible or not. Additionally, we need some trigger method that informs the composable to start its logic. We will fill that in the upcoming slides. And of course, we need to return these two constants so that they are available. So now it's getting interesting. Let's tackle the first problem. We want to track the time spent on the page. As you have seen in the previous example, the user had to spend 6 seconds or more on the page. so that the pop-up was visible. So let's get started we are still in our use polite pop-up composable, and we define a new reactive variable called read time elapsed. To trigger or to track the time, we use the use timeout function composable from VueJS. It can be configured to not start immediately, but it returns a start method that we can call, and then the timeout starts to run. After the timeout has elapsed, we set our reactive variable to true so that we know that the timeout has elapsed. We can configure it, of course. We can configure the timeout. Here we use 6,000 milliseconds, so 6 seconds. Last step is in our trigger method, we reset the reactive variable and then call the start method of the use timeout function composable. And basically, that's all to track the time spent on the page. Let's head over to the next big problem. We want to track the scroll progress. So what we want to implement is the visitor must scroll through at least 35% of the current page during their visit. Therefore, let's create a computed property. And this computed property should return the percentage scrolled. And now we want to calculate it. Therefore, we need to do some calculations, of course. First, we need the document scroll height. So this is this blue rectangle. And we have access to this value using document.documentElement.scrollHeight. Next, we need the track length of the scroll bar, which is this blue filled rectangle. And therefore, we use again the VueJS composable. And for this example, it's the use window size composable. And to calculate the track length, we take the document scroll height and subtract the window height. And then we get the height of the track length. Next, we again use a VueJS composable. This time it's use window scroll. And using this composable, we get the scroll top value in pixels. And now we have all the values together to do the calculation. So to get the track length, to get the scroll progress in percent, we take the scroll top value and divide it by the track length. And using mathfloor, we can do the percentage calculation. So yeah, that's the whole calculation. Next, we of course need to define somewhere the threshold. In this case, I have again created a computer property. In this case, it's called scrolled content, and it checks if our calculated amount scrolled in percentage is bigger or equal our threshold. So this was a lot of calculation, but basically this is the whole logic to track the scroll progress. Now we have all the information available to update the visible reactive variable. For that, we use a view watcher, and this watcher takes our read time elapsed variable and the scrolled content computed property. And if both values are true, we can show the polite pop-up. So now we can show the pop-up, but we want that the pop-up is polite. So we add some logic that we wait before the pop-up appears again. Therefore, we define a TypeScript interface that contains some meta information. So in this interface, we want some information like, did the visitor already subscribe or is he still unsubscribed? Additionally, we track the scene count, how many times he has already seen the pop-up, and the last seen at timestamp to store the information when he has last seen the pop-up. We use again a VueJS composable. In this case, we use the use local storage composable. Oh, sorry. And we use this use local storage composable to create a reactive variable of the local storage, which we can use to read and write this interface into local storage. So now we are inside our watcher. and we are inside the code where we trigger the visibility. And if the pop-up is triggered visible, we store the last seen at timestamp by using newDate.getTime. And if the watcher runs, we can now add a guard. And this guard checks if there is a last seen timestamp stored in local storage, and if this last seen timestamp matches the today's date. So basically, the pop-up appears today, and if it once appeared today, it will not be visible again. It will be only visible again to the visitor if he visits the page on another day. And this is today logic is basically just a simple JavaScript function that does some date comparison. Okay, so that's good, but we can further improve it, because we also want to not show the pop-up too often. And therefore, we define the max scene count. In this example, I defined it to be 5. And 5 means the visitor sees the pop-up 5 times and not more often than 5 times. How can we implement that? We are back in our watch function. We trigger the visibility of the pop-up, and then we simply increment the scene count. We then add another guard, and this guard checks the scene count in local storage. And if it is bigger or equal the max scene count of our configuration, the pop-up is not shown. So this is cool. We can go one step further, because if a visitor is already subscribed, we don't want to show the pop-up to them because they already subscribed to the newsletter, and that's fine for us. We don't want to annoy the visitor with the pop-up anymore. Therefore, we create a new method called setSubscribed, which updates the status inside local storage. Of course, we need to return this method in our composable. And we add another guard, which checks, is the status in local storage subscribed? If yes, don't show the polite pop-up. Finally, let's take a look at how we can update this subscribe status, because somewhere some Vue component needs to call this setSubscribed method. In this example, we are in the polite pop-up dialog component. So this is the Vue component that renders the polite pop-up. And here we use our usePolite pop-up composable and call the setSubscribed method on subscribe success. So we have here the newsletter subscription form. And if the subscription was a success, we call the setSubscribe method of our composable. Additionally, it's interesting how we trigger the pop-up. Therefore, we take a look at the catch-all route of Nuxt. And here we compare if the route path equals Vue, because as you remember, we don't want to show the pop-up on other routes like the React route or the homepage. We only want to show it on the Vue route. And this is exactly the code. And if the route path equals Vue, we call the trigger method of our polite pop-up, which triggers the use timeout function and all the logic that is included. Yeah, and basically that's done. We have implemented the main logic for polite pop-up in Nuxt 3. And we have to say thanks to the amazing people behind Vue, VueJS, Nuxt 3, and SlideDev. By the way, what is SlideDev? SlideDev is the tool that I use to create the slides. And it's also based on Vue, and it's amazing, like all the technologies I have mentioned here. If you want to read more, I also wrote a blog post exactly about that topic, which you can see in the slides. And I will also share the link to the slides so that you have access to the repository and to the blog post. Thanks, and I'm happy to answer your questions.